Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we are back for our first episode of the 2023 season. Lockie, are you excited to be back talking footy again?
Oh, mate, as soon as we start planning this episode, it all feels real. It reminds me that the footy is just around the corner.
No, I absolutely love to see it. And look, this is, of course, our 2023 season preview episode. So let's not waste any time. Let's get stuck into it. No softball questions here. We're going straight for the big ones, and it's all about expectations. Lockie, what are your expectations for the 2023 season?
Can I establish, are we doing a no fence sitting policy in this episode? What's the deal with that? Have you got any fence sits planned?
I'm hoping not. And if I do, push me off said fence. We are going straight for it. None of that this year. I feel like we can't have that complacency. None of this soft stuff. Let's go for it. If we're expecting Carlton to do it, we need to do it ourselves. Everything on the
I was just going to say, we need to hold ourselves to the standard that we hold the boys to. And for me, that expectation, I guess, is I'm expecting that we're going to be better than last season. Sounds pretty simple, but that's what I'm expecting to see. And if we are going to be a better team than last season, well, that means we're going to be playing finals. So at the very baseline, we can't say that every season. Some seasons we're like, I feel like we're going to take a step back this year.
Yeah.
This year, we're on the way up.
No, I definitely agree with finals. I'll almost do a bit of a follow-up question here because there's a bit of sentiment at the moment talking about, well, last year, I guess the expectation, particularly throughout that season when we went 8-2, was we have to make finals. We miss out. Do you aim a bit higher than just finals now? Or are you happy with just, I guess, the baseline of that? Are you going, we need to be making top 4, we need a finals win? Like, are you treating last year as if we did make finals and then therefore you have to almost aim higher this season? Where are you kind of sitting in that conversation?
I'm probably separating what we need to do and what we're aiming to do. I mean, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be aiming to win the flag this year. Yes. I think that's a genuine possibility, and I really hope that internally that's what Vossi is putting out there. I don't see any reason why they're going, all right, let's make top 4. If all the stars align, we can do it all. And yeah, you're right. Like, the narrative around seemingly a lot of non-Carlton fans too is, oh yeah, Carlton will make top 4. They got to make top 4. Ridiculous if they don't. It's pretty hard to go from not making the finals for 10 years to making the top 4. So I'm like, it's not going to be the end of the world for me if we don't make top 4, but absolutely the expectations and what we should be aiming for is getting a double chance. No doubt.
No, I like the separation. It's an interesting one, kind of what, I guess, kind of pass mark, if we're using that term. It has to be finals. It can't be anything else at this stage. Last year was kind of probably the last time with this group that you could maybe go, okay. And even in the end, I think both of us have been critical of it was such a missed opportunity. And when you're looking at the ages of a lot of these players now, they're starting to get into their prime. A few are starting to get into those later 20s. We don't want to be wasting the best and the prime of these players. And you see with other clubs, it can happen almost out of nowhere. And we can't just let that slip, and we can't have another, okay, we've got this core group and it's only the end of their career that they start to see a bit of success. We just have to be aiming for it. And I agree with you. My expectations are, we've treated last season as if we made finals, and we're aiming a bit higher because I think you can agree last year it was just, okay, let's just hope we can get in. It feels the vibe around the Carlton community is, well, okay, we've seen ourselves last season. We can match it with the best. There's obviously still some issues, which is why we didn't make top 8. But let's push a bit further now, and I want to start to see us doing a bit of damage. And so I don't necessarily have us like top 4. For me, I'm not too fast the positioning of the ladder, but I want a finals win, which might be a little bit too much for some. Some might be saying finals is enough, but I want to see us actually be in there, because I think last season we were all probably thinking, if we get in, that's enough. If we lose, if we get belted, it's all good. We just made finals. We've ticked that off. No one can say anything. But I want to go further. I don't want to just be making up the numbers. For me, it's a finals win.
Yeah, no, I think it's really valid. And I mean, we'll get into the specifics a bit more later. But
yeah,
I mean, what we had 12 wins last season, and there's years where that is a finals team.
yeah.
And perhaps you could say you could hope that we're going to have 15 wins this year. Like 3 more wins is not a whole lot when you think about how close we were in some last year.
Yeah.
And some years that's top 4. So it's as simple as that, really. It's not going to take a whole lot more, in my opinion, for us to get to that kind of level where we want to be.
100%. And we're going to dive very deep into the injury front. Pretty topical at the moment, as it probably already was before some injuries did happen. But since the news of particularly Walsh and then Zach Williams being out for one the season and one, we don't actually know how long, at least the start of the season. Has that changed your expectations at all, knowing that we're going to have a couple of key players out for an extended period of time already?
I wouldn't say it's changed them massively yet, and I'm trying to be optimistic as always. I think we showed last year that we can battle through having key players out. It's just how many of those key players out before it all falls apart. Like, round 23. Like we showed that we beat Richmond at the start of the year without Walsh. Even though he's one of our best players, we can do it without him. And we haven't seen really the best of Williams in a Carlton jersey yet anyway. So I guess I'm not too worried yet, but it's just when they actually start to build up even more that I would start to get worried. And also considering that I still firmly believe that injuries is one of the main reasons we didn't play finals last year. So that's always going to be there. And if the same thing happens, then we might miss out again. So we can't let that happen.
Yeah, it definitely isn't changing my expectations. I agree with you. We came from within a kick in 2 games late in the season with really no midfield. We barely had half of the best players out there and put ourselves in winning positions to do it. So it doesn't change the expectations. It probably changes, I guess, maybe my excitement or confidence around it. I think if you have a Walsh there, you have a Zach Williams, all accounts were, he was training the house down, all those preseason cliches. But you add those players in there and you start to feel a bit confident that maybe we can push deep into finals and really impact and maybe push for a premiership. You never know if things align for you. You start to have some injury issues. And when you don't have the keys of your best 22, you start to worry a little bit. But I agree with you. I think expectations don't change. We know it's that next man up mentality. We're not just a team of one. We're a squad, and it has to be every single person stepping up and doing a role. And as well with the coaching group, they've got to be able to find ways to get the best out of everyone. We've shown that in glimpses about being a bit more consistent around that. And kind of touched on this, and there was a bit of a fan question on this. So I'm going to ask it. It was from Jacqueline Hunt. She asks, pretty much after the heartbreak of last season, surely it's finals or bust this year. And I guess the question I had was kind of following in from that, which is what happens if we don't make finals as well, Lockie?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that, I guess we seemingly talk about every preseason. I mean, I don't really take too much of a dramatic approach to it. I mean, I think there could be lots of different reasons why we don't make finals. If we don't see 2022, that's kind of what happened. I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to take a bit of a different mindset to it. Yeah. And maybe this isn't going to answer your question very well, but I think we're in a really, I guess, fortunate position right now where you and I are going to go to as many games as we can this season. Yes. And every week we're going to think that we're going to win. And my God, most of our lives we go to the footy and we think we're going to lose. So, I think we just got to keep in mind that we're in a really good position right now. We're confident that we're going to be playing finals. We think there's a fair chance we play top 4. That's pretty amazing. If it doesn't happen, we're not going to be tearing things down. It's the second season with Voss, second season with this whole reset of the club. So what happens if we don't make finals? I think probably the same thing that happened this season. They're going to review everything deeply. They're going to make some changes around the fringes, and then we'll do it again. But I don't think we need to worry about that.
Yeah, you probably answered like my follow-up question there, which I'll ask anyway. I'll push a bit further. Is if we don't, and let's say for hypothetical, we were generally pretty fit throughout the year, because that's probably the caveat where when we had quite a few injuries, people can start to put blames on things, and it's a bit easier. If we're relatively healthy and we don't make finals, do you think Voss stays? Because I know this is kind of the thing when people talk that finals or bust, which I know you don't love the bust terminology, because obviously if we don't make finals, it's a disaster of a season. There might be certain reasons around it, and you never know what could happen. So it's hard to always talk about the hypotheticals, but it's not a success and something will need to change. For you, is that almost as far as the coach can go if it's been 2 consecutive seasons with the list, with everything around us that we believe is good enough, to fail again, be wasting the prime of this list? Is that another thing that you go, well, maybe Voss isn't the guy and we have to look somewhere else? Or is it other aspects that you're looking to change instead?
I think it's too much of a scapegoat mentality to go to that as the first choice. And also it's way too nuanced and hypothetical to even put. I wouldn't want to put my name against any kind of prediction like that, because look, if we start with 12 losses, he's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Like, that's a fact. It's way, I'm interested to hear what your take is on it, because it's just so hypothetical and unlikely that it would be absolutely insane, I think, for Voss to not be there at the end of this season. With what we've seen so far, it would have to be an all-time collapse, and everyone would have to lose faith in him, which I just can't see happening. But I'm keen to hear what you think, if you think otherwise.
I'm probably in a similar vein. You particularly say, it has to be that scenario where we're losing every single game and we're getting pumped and these little things, really, for it to probably come down to Voss. I've weirdly got this mentality this season, which I'm stupidly confident, which is probably the worst thing to have. But if it all goes to shit and we don't make finals, which I don't even want to almost comprehend, so it's hard to bring this up so early in the episode. I want to be positive, but it's probably almost got to be the playing group at that stage. I'm almost going, well, how many coaches can you have? How many assistant coaches? How many different leaders? We can have successful CEOs come in, be presidents, be whatever you want, get whoever in. And at some stage, the players would have to cop some flack. And you kind of go back to the mentality of the last few games last season, the Adelaide game, the Brisbane game stand up for me almost more than the last two. There has to be more questions for them, and you'd almost have to probably blow that up and make some big moves, move some players on, and try to go to that root cause of the group. Because you could almost throw anyone in there to coach, and if Vossi can't get the result, I'm not confident that anyone else could. But hopefully we don't get to that stage. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts as well. Let us know if you're on YouTube. Drop it in the comments. Tweet at us if you're listening on your streaming services, what your expectations are. And do we have to aim higher than just finals? And I guess maybe even answer that harsh one there of what the hell do we do if we don't make finals? But again, hopefully we don't have to. And look, before we go any further, and this will probably be the only interruption in this podcast, look, I've got to give a big plug here. The great man, Nick Wishart from the Carlton Cheersquad. Look, he's set up a great tipping competition for all the baggers out there. The prizes on this are absolutely unreal. The Cheersquad have outdone themselves here because, look, this isn't one of those competitions where it's just first take out everything and that's it. If you finish first, if you finish second, even third, you will receive a team-signed Carlton Guernsey. Yes, you heard me, a team-signed Carlton Guernsey for not just first, not just second, it's third as well. And look, a link to the competition will be in the show notes. It will be in the description of this episode. So make sure you click through, you head on in, join the competition if you like a bit of tipping. And look, it will be $25 to enter. But of course, all of that money will go towards the amazing things that the Cheersquad do, making flags, the materials for the banners, and some exciting special events that the Cheersquad do have planned for this year. These guys do such an amazing job for our football club, give up their time, money, effort. For not much in return, it's all that volunteer work. So if you want to enter, if you think you're a good tipster, jump in because you have 3 big chances to win that team-signed Carlton Guernsey. And look, even if you don't take that out, you have a good chance. We're going to be in it. We will probably look. We're probably going to win this thing. Just saying that, just quietly. But
it's really 2 prizes up for grabs, you would say. But
it is. So look, if you don't happen to win one of the three, and we don't happen to win one of the three, you may have the bragging rights about defeating us, which I'm sure is worth it. So yes, check the comments in the description, all of that lovely stuff, and join the tipping competition. But that's enough. That's where we are back to the episode.
Brilliant.
And look, the big thing, as we've already touched on in this episode, is clearly us making finals, which leads to the next big question, Lockie.
Mm-hmm.
From last season, what has to change for us to make finals in 2023?
Oh boy. The easiest question every year. I mean, I automatically think back to last season, and it's like, what was it? We were so good in so many areas. So for me, it's like it's iterating on the game plan. It's not doing anything crazily different. The list that we're going in with, I guess the best 22, best 25 players is pretty damn similar. Like, we're finally going to have some consistency in this team, and I think that's the most important thing. And then I guess when you talk about that consistency, look, it's probably going to be the most said word of this entire episode. But if we do end up having a good injury run and we get the same guys on the park each week, that's just going to make an absolute world of difference. Because pretty much everybody on our list that was healthy at some point last season played a game, and it's pretty hard to go all the way when that's the case. So keep iterating, nothing crazy different, and let's get the same guys out there for me.
It's probably the first season that, well, one, the coaches stayed the same, and the coaches around that have stayed the same. Yeah. But there hasn't been many changes to the playing group, where normally there's quite a lot of movement, a lot of ins, a lot of outs. So I agree with you. I think that consistency, and it then alludes to that fitness element, and it's about that connectivity. It's about us being able to build chemistry, because if we're able to put out the same guys on the park each and every week, our best players, you give yourself the best chance. You create that bond, and the players know where they are. They're meant to be at every second. They know that Fisher's going to be in that position to give him the hands every single time. Those little things that the best teams, they just know on instinct. And I'm excited to see what another preseason under Voss can do, and where we can take this playing list, because, Voss comes in with a one preseason, a little bit of time, completely new assistants. They have to not only learn the game plan, but learn players, and that unfortunately can take time. So I am excited about the maybe just natural jump we can take just by having the same people around. There might have been things throughout the year that Voss went, look, this is the game style I want to play, but I don't have the players. I don't have this or that. I'm just going to have a half game plan to get through the first season, and then we can build on that, which, going on what I think I needs to change, clearly a big thing last season was that physicality in the contest, hard at the contest, win the contested ball. This year, it seems like that shift has gone towards our transition, our ball movement. You've seen it in the way we targeted an Akers in the offseason, a guy that has that two-way running, can cover the ground, gone for the pace and the running ability with our draftees. I think that's a big thing, because how many times last season did we have the ball under pressure in our back half, and we chipped it around for about two kicks, got into the back pocket, long kick down the line, and it hurt us. We weren't able to move the ball consistently, get these, because when we move the ball fast, when we're able to get the ball in, and it's stupid, because football in essence is a simple game. When you get the ball to a guy like Harry and Charlie in that forward line, chances are they're probably going to mark it and kick goals. You can see by both being Coleman medalists. And when you're struggling to move the football, it stifles that. So transition is clearly a big thing. And then probably on top of that, it comes back to, again, working on that transition where, how many times last season did we struggle conceding from turnover and struggling to really limit the effect that those turnovers had? I think that's probably another element of that, and where the change is going to happen. And then there's little things as well. Like, I don't know if you have any others that you wanted to add before I just go on an absolute tangent.
No, please.
I want to list here.
I love it. I love a tangent.
Well, it just goes probably I think the smalls need to maybe contribute a little bit more. If you're looking to add these extra elements, we're not getting a lot of goals so far. And I get it that, the Durdens, the the Motlops, they're a little bit younger, a little bit inexperienced, and sometimes that's going to happen. But we do need a bit more product from those guys, maybe a Jack Martin. And then the other two, everything's coming back down in my head to this chemistry and connectivity. Having a third intercept defender. We didn't have Gov. We didn't have Marchbank for long stretches last year. I think we missed that in the game plan. And then even with the ruckman, we TDK maybe wasn't ready. Pitnet out injured. I want to see a ruckman step up. I think that was a key part to our contested ball. I want us perfect on every single front. And if we can get all those little things, I think we will take big strides, and we won't even have to worry about will we or won't we make finals. It will be how far can we go this year.
Sounds like quite a recipe for success. I agree. And I just wanted to touch on where you started that tangent. Great. One of your best, may I say.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, just talking about Vossi and the game plan in his first season, it really stuck with me. People can go and listen back to our episode a year ago where we did this 100%. Exact thing. And I remember you being quite, call it what you want, realistic, pessimistic maybe, about what the start of the season could look like, where it was like, this is an entirely new game plan. We could reel off some losses to start this season, and as we find our feet, and it was the opposite. It all clicked, and you know, we know how it went from there. I think there is so much to be said about just that, the fact that it's now the second season, the second preseason with this system, with all these things, listening to Vossi, I think it's going to make a dramatic difference to last year. I think that's going to be improvement in itself. So, yeah, well said.
Yeah, there were so many unknowns last season, and it's that big thing that's come out of the club. In the off-season, they went in last year, the playing group have said it themselves, with just hope that they can do it. They believe they can do it now, and I wonder just the difference in mentality of that. And we've spoken about mentality so many times and how that needs to change, particularly late last season. I just wonder if they didn't have belief before, and now they're saying that they have it, or in their heads they think they have it, which is all you need to do, almost trick yourself into believing just the 5% difference that you're going to get, which if you put that on our percentage last season, we make finals. But we've talked a bit of positivity there. What can change? What can be the good part of things? Unfortunately, it's the hot topic at the moment. It's injuries. We have to go here. And yet again, another season. We're already riddled with some injuries to the playing group. Last year played that big role, and we can't catch a break. I don't know what it is. Is it luck? Is it all Andrew Russell? It's the big thing we spoke about last year. We'll talk about it again. A lot have taken aim at this man, Andrew Russell, and the strength and conditioning team in general. I guess as an overall thing, how are you feeling about our injury management and overall fitness of the team?
Yep. It's a good question. It has to be talked about. I think you know me, I'm probably less critical than most, mainly due to, what would I call it, being naive to exactly what goes on, with a strength and conditioning team. I think the things that I need to note about him, so my understanding is his 5th season at the club going into it. You know, that's a fair time. So if it was his last season, say, I don't think that would be a rash decision. Like, that wouldn't be rushed, you know? Yeah. It's not like this is his second year and we flick him, because he does have a great resume and he has some great references, and, you know, of course he would, but at the end of the season, Cookie was challenged on it and he spoke incredibly highly of him. He clearly still backs him in. With that said, and like I said, if we got to the end of the season and he moved on, I don't think that would be a crazy thing to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a hard conversation, and there just seems to be so many sides of this argument that are so incredibly passionate, and I get that. We're all Carlton supporters, and no one's opinion is correct on this. No one's is right, no one's is wrong, and it's hard, but it's obviously a concern, and I'm not here to put the blame game on it. And some people get annoyed at that, and I can definitely see why, because you feel like you're not there's no accountability to someone, but I don't know who exactly to blame, and I don't think that everything needs to be thrown on someone. But there's obviously a concern, and it's clear that we have not been able to get our best team on the park consistently and for long enough. It is concerning to hear in the off season that, like, this is the first time potentially that we're having individual training programs. That seems bizarre if that is actually the case, that we've got these injury-prone players and we're not making sure that, because you even heard about this with Andrew Russell, which is the crazy thing, that with a guy like Cyril, he went, look, I can't get, his body does not work for 9 to 5 training every single day of the week. So we're going to have to adjust him. You might only have to do a little bit of training just so we can get him through, so we can impact the game the best. So it's weird to hear words like that getting thrown about, that hasn't been something we have been doing, particularly with so much knowledge that that's clearly what you have to do. Every single person is different. And there's clearly been too many load injuries. There's been a lot of stress-related injuries, which is, again, quite concerning. And then a lot of issues around players re-injuring themselves with the same things, whether it's during rehab, players just having an injury and being out for way longer than is initially said to be injured for. And all of these things probably put no trust in the strength and conditioning. I know myself from the outside, not knowing a lot, I have a lot of concerns around it. And sometimes for me, I always take the thing of, I have to put my faith in the club that those inside know what they're doing. And because it's a fresher team, and they've come out publicly this offseason saying us not having our team out there wasn't good enough and we're looking into it, which makes me think that they are actually doing something about it. I think that one of the other issues, along with just the injury management as one, which clearly isn't performing well enough, is that the messaging out of the club is not great. You hear about the Cottrell injury and he's apparently been in a moon boot for like a month, and there's no words that coming out from the club. And that doesn't help the image of, I guess, Andrew Russell and his team. It makes them feel a bit stupid, I would suppose, where everyone's going like, yeah, Cottrell's out injured. He's done something here. And you don't hear anything. You don't hear anything. And it makes them look dumb. Like they don't know what they're doing back there. They can't diagnose the injury or whatever it is. That lack of transparency isn't helping. And yeah, I just think that whether it comes down to the players not having the bodies, maybe we're recruiting too many injury prone players. Not sure what it is, but it's clear that this needs to be a focus. And whether that's personnel changing, good. I don't care who the strength and conditioning coach is. Could not care less who it is. Just make sure our players are fit and actually playing out there.
Yeah, well, that was you took the words right out of my mouth, because it's like the old, when we're picking a team and you want someone to come in, well, someone's got to come out.
Yeah.
Also, if we're gonna fire Andrew Russell because people will believe that he doesn't have the ability to do this well,
yes.
who have you got? Who's next in line to be our strength and conditioning coach? Is it going to be someone with as good a resume as him? At the top end, you can say that these last few years haven't been good, but so it's just one of those things for me where I just got to have the optimism. But I will say, to your point, the Cottrell thing I did think was a bad look, and I'm not normally critical of the messaging and the comms, but that one where it was like Walsh, all this stuff, and by the way, this as well. It was like, really? Really?
And I'm more than happy to be throwing it at Andrew Russell and asking and expecting more. I think we all should, of anyone in any role. I want to make sure every single person is carrying their weight. But, there's that one part of me that wonders as well, and maybe this is just me trying to devil's advocate this, because I'm not I think people can strew this the wrong way and think that I'm team Andrew Russell. Like, don't care. I just want us winning football games, want everyone out there. I wonder how much as well is, you've heard about like our training standards maybe not being great in the past. If Vossi's come in and said, this is the standard, whether the bodies haven't been prepared for that and that's caused a bit of this. Maybe we've just pushed them a bit far because they're not used to it. But I think on the flip side, they need to be good enough, and we need to be making sure that we're catching these things early to get them into this program. Yeah. But I think he's out of contract at the end of this year, big Jack Russell. And if we're not fit enough, if we're not running out seasons well, because at the second half of the year, it always seems like we start plummeting. We're not peaking at the right times. It doesn't happen this year. I can't see him being there, to be honest, at the end of the year on a big wage. And I don't think there's been one season where he's been at the club that you've said, geez, everyone's been fit and firing and we look healthy. So clearly that may mean that something does change. But let's get specific about it. Let's talk about the big one, Sam Walsh, because how big of a blow do you think that this injury is to the team? And we kind of alluded to it. How big is this to affecting our chance to play finals?
He's a gun. We know that. It's really hard to put kind of something on this without exactly knowing how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
I remember you and I had kind of a little chat about this the other day where it was like, it's so hard to know because you just, for some reason, feel like he's just going to come up out of nowhere. But then also the history of this says that it's going to be round 8 and we still haven't heard anything. So I think we can do it without him. Kind of, as I said earlier, it's the pile on. It's when we've got 3 of those. I mean, people need to go back and watch our tiers video from the other day. But it's 100%. When we've got 2 or 3 of those tier 1ers out. That's when I'm starting to get worried. But obviously, it's a massive blow. He's incredible. He could win the Brownlow if he was fit.
No, 100%. And he is someone that is a little bit different to what we have in that midfield, being a little bit more of that outside little sprinkle of class there. And I don't think we necessarily have someone completely on the list there that he isn't playing in this team that sort of steps into that role where maybe if it was a Hewitt or a Kennedy, we may have another more inside suited midfielder to take that load. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe, and I'm trying to be as pessimistic as possible, maybe our structure doesn't rely as hard on a Sam Walsh because we're so trying to be this contested, win the ball kind of side. And maybe when we start to talk about who replaces him, someone else can come in and sort of sort that role out a little bit more, allow a Chera, allow a Cripps to maybe be a bit more free. Obviously, it's a big blow, but we've got to make sure that we're better than just one player injured away from us not making finals. It's just not acceptable, and it hurts, but you've got to move on. So how are you replacing Sam Walsh for, I guess, the inevitable future of this season? Hopefully, like you say, miraculously, he's like, I'm in round 1, he's ready to go, but likelihood says he misses the first month or so.
Yeah, look, I was going through my head, like, should I make a Liam Stocker joke here, get him into the midfield? But I won't. That's the last Liam Stocker reference for this season.
He's dead to us.
He is. Is David Cunningham going to be playing? I mean, that'd be nice. Is that a broken enough replacement? Yeah, look, I mean, there's no replacing. I mean, it could be a Dow opportunity. He's an obvious one that was always around the fringes. If we talk, Doherty might be a name that you want to talk about, which everybody wants to talk about. Who have you got?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Doherty was the one we saw late last season. He sort of brought a breath of fresh air, I think, to that midfield. Very meters gained, get the territory, which in those close games, that finals like pressure and atmosphere is something I think we maybe lack a little bit. Someone that is just willing to say, just get this ball forward and get us territory. And it's a nice difference maker. We'll obviously chat a bit about it, maybe more with the Zach Williams injury. I don't know what you do now with that injury. I think I was happy to just say, Doherty goes in there, we'll figure it out. But let's say you limit his time there. It's tough. Do you go that route of trying to free up the Chera, and Chera takes more responsibility? Because in that last round, Chera G, he looked good. And we probably saw the best game we saw of him getting more time on the ball, getting more focused there, being that outlet. That's exciting for me, seeing if we can unlock a bit more of him, because we definitely didn't see the best of Adam Chera last season. And do you throw an Ed Kerno in there who can maybe do a bit more of that grunt work to allow Kennedy a bit more on the outside, Cripps a bit more on the outside, and even Hewitt as a really good player. If Ed's doing a bit more of George Hewitt's role, it's spoken about a bit with a George Hewitt in his time playing a bit of halfback. We know it can be a bit more classy, I suppose, with the ball in hand. Yep. Is that another element that we look down? And I mean, Paddy Dow's a name that's going to get thrown around. I'm not sure. I think last year we saw that he wasn't probably the name that people really wanted. The club, I suppose, didn't want to throw in there. I'm not sure if we will see him. I even just like the idea of giving Fisher more midfield time, to be honest. And
love it.
I think we've got enough smalls that we can maybe cover him a little bit. And at times when Fish was thrown in there, he adds a bit of spark, adds that outside run. I think we've got enough options to cover him, I suppose. It's not going to be as good as having Walsh there, but I'm confident that the magnets can get thrown around. And up until that Zach Williams injury, I don't think it was hurting another line that much by taking someone else out.
Yep. No, well said.
But I guess let's segue into that. Zach Williams injury. It hurts us more because Jordan Boyd's out as well. It would have been easy to just say, look, kind of like the Walsh one, next man in, Jordan Boyd, let's give him a go. He's out as well. What happens here? If you're the coach, does Doherty just go straight back? Like what are you doing to alleviate this injury? Because it seemed like we had so many running half backs, and now all of a sudden, maybe we don't.
Yeah, it's very tough when it's two players in a very similar position.
Yeah.
I'm not as convinced maybe as other people about the Doherty plan for this year, even though it did work quite well at the end of last season. So, yeah. So I guess for me, we've got Sard, we've got Newman, we're going to have Doc back there. I'm thinking the putting Hewitt back there at times seems like a decent shout, especially if we have some different players that we want to start putting through the midfield, like Fish, like you said. Perhaps we see Cowan sooner than maybe we anticipated too. And I think that's kind of an exciting idea. So again, this isn't one that I'm too stressed about either, but it does look so completely different when there's two players suddenly out of that depth chart when you're right. It felt like we had so many and now it's like, where are they?
I think for me, the frustrating element comes from what we talked about earlier, being that how do we make finals? It's about our transition. And you saw at his best, Zach Williams wanting to take the game on, that aggression, the class, the run, the speed. That's going to help us. And having him out, having his understudy in Jordan Boyd that plays a similar role out as well, you kind of down those running halfbacks. And that's probably why I'm a little bit more concerned about this position rather than anything else. But again, it kind of comes back to, and as much as I know everyone's pretty negative on it at the moment, if we're good enough, if we want to make finals, we simply have to cover for it. You have to find ways to win, whether we're slightly adjusting the game plan to go, okay, maybe let's not go as run heavy. Let's figure this out. And is that Doherty with his ball use? Is that Newman with his ball use? Do we try to have Marchbank down there a little bit more to allow the speed of McGovern to run off that halfback a little bit more? As much as that worries me with maybe his hamstring, let's ease up on making Gov run too much with his short burst. But we've seen he can, I think there was some crazy stat that like he had one of our highest speeds clocked during last season, which is insane to think about when you know like the speed of others. But if he can stay relatively healthy, fingers crossed, is that an element that you try to unlock? And I think there's enough different kind of players out there that we can make something work. And you touch on a Cowan that I'm incredibly high on in this squad. From what I saw last season at under 18s, obviously he's only a kid. I don't want to put pressure on this guy to be like, he's our savior. He's going to come in round one and be prime Cade Simpson. He's not. He's going to take time to develop, but that halfback role you saw with maybe a Dacos from Collingwood, that it is one that you can come in and not be super exposed and left exposed. They put him there because it was allowing him to read the play a little bit more, grow into the game. It could be an element that we see, and if he's ready, it'll be exciting. But his attributes, I think, he's probably the only fit person that's not in that 22 that matches up with that kind of profile.
Yeah.
But I think we're just going to have to wait and see, I guess, to finally finish this sort of Zach Williams thing. Maybe this is going quite deep, but he's only played 23 games so far out of a possible 44 due to his injuries. And it's going to get worse now that he's not playing this season. It'll be 23 out of 67. Is this cause for concern around Zach Williams as a whole? I know this injury is different. It's an ACL, but the numbers are there. The injury history is there. What are your overall thoughts at the moment around Zach Williams and I guess him going forward?
I laughed when I saw this in the run sheet, to be honest, because I was concerned about his health. I was concerned about his health well before this injury. There's no he's had a lot of bad luck since he's been with us. So Is there cause for concern? Definitely. I think there's this group of guys that we have on our list that we're just never going to be able to trust again that they're going to be able to play a 22-game season. Facts.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that's going to mean for him after this year, though. We know that he's on quite different money to a lot, which I guess is what it really is about. Some people were over the offseason saying before he got injured and before we started hearing how hot he was over the preseason, is Zach Williams like even best 22 when we were fully healthy? Yeah. And you look at our halfbacks, like he is for me, but some people are putting that out there. So, yeah. What do you think?
It's obviously concern. As you mentioned, it probably just was concern this whole time. And unfortunately, at this stage with him, with his contract, where you probably just have to take the hit for his whole time. I'm not sure it's worth really getting rid of him unless someone would really throw something ridiculous, like offer-wise, towards us. It's really frustrating because it seemed as if it was probably the first time that he'd actually rocked up back to preseason fit. There weren't these murmurs of he's come back a bit overweight, he's not taking it seriously. Whether it's just bollocks coming out of the club or whatnot, it felt different. And even just looking at him and seeing little bits here and there, it felt like there was a bit more professionalism to him, which makes this injury for me, from a human side, hit a little bit more because I just wanted to see the best for him. But it's an ACL. Like, what can you do? It's not like it was his calf again, like it was his Achilles again, where I'd probably get a bit more angry. I just feel like it's one of those freak things you can't do anything about, and just provides opportunity for someone else. And we'll deal with the Zach Williams conversation when we have to. For me, I'm happy to park it and just try to move on and look for positivity somewhere else.
For sure. It definitely, it hits me harder too. And especially because, the circumstances in which we got him and how happy he was to be able to be in the navy blue and all that. So I'm definitely not giving up hope that he's not going to be, I think he can still be part of our premiership team. But just not for the next little bit.
Yeah, so let's get away from this negativity. It feels like the season preview
injuries
started high, getting a bit negative, worrying about will we make finals, talking about injuries. Let's get up and about and excited for this season. Right. So let's talk about the current preseason. Anyone that you've got your eye on that you're excited about to see in these 2 preseason games coming up, and I guess to maybe start round 1. What are you looking for? What are you looking at right now? Take me through it.
Boy, am I excited. I cannot believe that it's just around the corner already. I mean, cop-out answer for the first one. I'm just very excited to see Akers in that beautiful number 13, see him rolling around there. That's the one that really sticks out. It's going to be interesting to see where Doherty plays, like we spoke about earlier. And I think that the other big thing for me is, and you spoke about it earlier, what are the small forwards going to look like this year? I feel like Motlop's like the answer to everybody's who's going to take that step in his second year, which is very exciting. But you could argue the same for Dirds. And then Owies is going to be around there as well. So I'm excited to see, are they going to, at least in the preseason, are we going to see them having a bit more impact in the games than just those kind of flashy moments? Because I think that will help elevate us. So, they're the things on my mind at the moment. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, first I just want to see everyone back. It's just that exciting time of, it was interesting. I definitely enjoyed the time off. And then it sort of hit a point pretty much straight after sort of Christmas, New Year, where I started to get excited again. Then you get some bad injury news, you feel a bit flat. Now I'm just fully ready to go. And you know me, if you're a long-term listener of this channel, I'm just excited to see the new draftees. I think that's obviously down it's my bread and butter. So I'm keen to see how they're actually fitting in, and having seen so much of particularly last year's crop, and what they can do at an under 18 level. It's a big jump. It's a big step up. I just kind of want to see how they're fitting in compared to some of the more seasoned players. And if there's anyone that actually looks like they're at that level, or just those little things, because that's the exciting part. They're so unknown. Have we unlocked the new gem? Do we have a future Brownlow medalist? It's those fun unknowns for me where their pressure's not on them just yet, and maybe a few other players a few years down the line. So that's something I'm excited to see. definitely the small forwards, see who's there. Is Jack Martin fit and firing? What's he going to offer up this season? The ruck one that I touched on is probably one of the big things for me. There's so much talk around it, and we're going to discuss this probably the most in our best 22 episode coming up. So I don't want to go too in depth at the moment, but there's still that debate. Is De Koning the answer? Has he stepped up? Is he ready to take over that spot? Is Pitternet actually the 100% number one? We probably played better with him when he was firing last season. Does he have what it takes? And just see exactly how the midfield is working around those two. And because it's still that issue, there's not a lot of depth below those two guys. There isn't a nailed on first choice. It's a big question mark going into this season, whether that's good or bad. Want to see where that's at. And I guess to touch on the last thing as well, then it is probably that other crop that we drafted a few years ago in the guys like a Kemp, guys like a Carroll.
Yeah, Kemp.
Is this their year to kick on? What position are they playing? How is it all going? I want to see. And obviously, it's preseason. It's only going to be 2 games. It's hard to read into a lot. But where is their development at this stage of the year? Big questions, I suppose.
Yeah, Kemp's a really good one. I feel like we could see anything from him. Like, I feel like we could see him almost lining up anywhere on the ground. They could try him somewhere else, see if he can get a different, fresh start somewhere. So it's exciting, mate. Can't wait to be at Icon in a couple of weeks, checking it out.
100%. So let's get into the fan questions. We asked you guys on Twitter. Definitely, I've left it late again, Lockie. I haven't told you before we started this to jump in and stop me. But yes, follow us on socials at Navy Blue Corner. We do a lot of sort of call and response on Twitter. It's probably the easiest to hear from you guys. We love hearing from you. So message us, obviously follow us, reply to our tweets because we ask a lot of our questions on there. Hit me with a couple, Lockie.
Yep, I love it. Let's start with our man Darren Hodge, which I feel like this is your wheelhouse. So I'm gonna just let you give the answer. How many games do you think our draftees will each play in 2023? Do you want to, put the tinfoil hat on, or look into the future? What's it going to be?
So hard to actually quantify a proper number. I definitely am probably not researched enough to. The dumbness in me wants to actually look at this and figure out the rough average games of people. So maybe I'll almost fence it to start, and then I'll give you a thing. But I think mainly I think Hollands will probably play the most. I feel as if his position on the wing, his attributes, even though he's a bit light framed, might be a bit easier for him to come in on that wing. I reckon he'll probably play the most. Cool. And we might see him a bit early if he's progressing quite well. Cowan, because of the injuries, I think you might see a bit of him. If I'm putting a number on it, we'll see 8 to 10 games from Ollie Hollands.
Range. Here we go.
Okay, but we'll have 9 then. I'll go split the middle. We'll get 9 games for Ollie Hollands. We will see 6 games from Cowan. And I actually don't think we'll see any from the other guys. I'm not sure we'll see Binzi. If we do it'd be 1 or 2. I don't think we'll see Harry Lemmy unless everyone gets injured. It's just a little bit far off the development there. So I'll try not to fence it. We called it out earlier, so thanks for pushing me for it. That's probably where I'm seeing those guys there. I hope I haven't missed anyone, considering I'm the self-appointed draft expert.
Oleg? How many is Oleg going to play?
Hopefully none, which means we're firing. I will say most
likely none.
I'll say 2.
Okay.
There you go.
It'll be a real Will Hayes.
Yes.
Let's keep pushing on. The lone wolf ant, Anthony. Who is your player that you think will have a breakout year? And his guess is Motlop, as I touched on earlier. Do you want to put your name behind a breakout player right now? Give me something.
See, this is a tough one. I want to save, I reckon, my main ones for our predictions episode, because that'll be out at some stage over the next few weeks. So I don't want to give away too much. I got to leave you guys with something, a couple of cliffhangers, but I'll try and find my notes for that, to be honest, as ones to watch. The hard thing was, and I'll spit this one out now.
Name.
It was meant to be Jordan Boyd. Everything was written in the stars for this man. I was falling in love with him. I was loving his music taste. I was loving his personality. Everything that this man was doing, I was about. I'm going to go and stick with my man. It's Lockie Cowan. I think I've put my name to this man so many times. I think we're going to get excited whether he becomes a staple, whatever. I just think that in his appearances that we're going to see this year, you're just going to see enough glimpses that you'll be like, whether he's good, whether he's bad, you'll see those little parts of his game and go, fuck me, we have a player in the making there. He has a couple of little attributes that if things develop right for him, he's on that elite level. I'm putting my name to Lockie Cowan this year. What about you? Put your name to one.
Oh, no, I like putting you on the hot seat in our little Twitter round. It's really, we kind of spoke a little bit before the podcast. It's really hard to pick a breakout guy this year because I don't know. I feel like now that we're getting a bit of consistency, it's just going to be this little gradual progression from so many. You know what? I'm going to say it's a cop out, but
no, I'm not having any fence sitting here. You've just grilled
this
me
isn't
on
a fence
it. I need a name.
Difference between a fence sit and a cop out, and my cop out is going to be Jesse Motlop, because if I was actually putting my money on someone to go from, he obviously wasn't best 22 at the start of last season, and he worked his way up. I think at the end of this season we're going to be talking about Jesse as, I'm calling it, our number one small forward.
Look, it's weak, but I think I'm just going to have to accept that. I'll make sure to grill you a little bit harder in our season predictions and make sure I'll push you a little bit harder. I'm happy to leave it for now, but remind me, everyone, that Lockie needs to put them on the table and get this one going. Do you have any more questions for me, Lockie?
Yeah, I like this one. Well, Mickey C has put 4 questions out there, but I'm just going to pick my favorite, which is really close to my heart, this one. Do you think at any stage this season are we going to absolutely bury some opposition?
If we don't, I am not going to be happy. I'm going to be spewing.
Well, I ask? Would you say we buried anyone last season?
Maybe, probably not. Maybe like North a little bit. Maybe.
I think we buried West Coast.
Yeah, I don't know. We still
think about that last quarter.
We had that scare in the middle, and so maybe I can't call it the 100% scare, but this probably is. Sorry, who asked us this question?
This was Mickey C.
Mickey C, thank you so much, because you almost should write my run sheet, because I've missed out on this part of it. But this is probably almost so vital to us being able to take this next step to be that top 4 team. We've rarely buried a team. We've barely had the foot on the throat, start to finish of a game, never been worried about losing. Start the game, put yourself 5 goals up, and just coast for the rest of the game and go on with it. That's going to be the difference, I think, this year. If we're able to start games strong and then go on with it. Like, I go back to that Hawthorn game and that Port Adelaide game where we set ourselves up. Clearly, we weren't, for whatever reason, ready to take that leap and finish off sides. And I think ultimately that hurt us as the season went on, that we had to really fight tooth and nail in so many games and get over the line. If you want to be fit and firing, you want to be healthy and peaking at the right periods, being able to give yourselves that lead and just coast off it, there's less miles in the legs. And us being able to do that, that is, as I said, it's going to be the difference maker in us being a top 4 team or us finishing 9th to 6th. Yeah.
That's why it was a really good question. And I think it is going to be important for us. But I do have to challenge you on the West Coast thing, because if we go back to it, so we were up by 17 at 3/4 time.
I agree.
46-0 in the last quarter.
Yeah.
That's what I call burying, not allowing a team to score in the fourth quarter. But we want to see that every 4 weeks, not once in the season.
We need to be beating those teams that we should be beating, and convincingly. And I want to bury a top 8 contending team. It feels like we maybe did that a little bit with maybe Freo when we played them at Marvel to an extent. I felt like that was pretty comprehensive. It wasn't a burial, but I guess for those good teams, I want us doing that a few times where it feels like a comfortable 30-point win. to really just show that when we do play some of these better sides, we can finish you. That's what I'm keen to see.
Yep.
Yes, it will happen.
Love
Thank
it.
you.
Let's bring it home with one more. Jeremy Cruz. Is it just me, or does Cripper look to have a bit of mongrel in him this preseason? What are you feeling about Cripper? A few clips going around, Crips, if you will.
I reckon he's nailed it there. There seems to be a little bit of something, and maybe it's in the verbiage of a lot of the people, the players themselves. It seems like there has been maybe a bit of a shift. I'm hearing a lot of, particularly if you've listened to the Summer Sessions, I believe is the club podcast going about. Good plug. Shout out to those guys. They probably don't need it. Shout out to us, please. We need to grow the podcast. Thanks. Get these guys on us. We can do the Summer Sessions. I'll come out of my hiatus over the summer to interview these boys.
Absolutely.
But I think there is this. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Almost just lost my train of thought. So maybe we can't interview these guys. To be honest, I'm awful at this job. But they've been saying when they're asked about, what's the expectation? What are you doing? They're just like, I'm sick of talking. We just got to prove it. The only thing we got to do is go out on that park and prove it. And maybe you're seeing that, particularly that clip with Cripper and Kennedy, where they're going at it. They're not just training. It almost feels like it's against opposition. And then once they're done, it's all good. It's no Satantaro helping Cameron Cloak kind of issues going on at training. They're able to just calm it down and have some fun afterwards. But when they're training, when they're doing anything competitive, they're going 100%. They don't care who's in their way. And they're hopefully training how they want to play. And I think hopefully maybe it's just a bit of clip and maybe that's not how it's going. But I think we need that little bit. We've talked about the ruthlessness. We've talked about the aggression. We're sick of being the nice guys, sick of having the guys that you're happy to take home to your daughter and all those things like that. We don't want that. We want the bad boys. We want some anger from these fellas. I want to see a bit of null from Big Cripper and the boys.
Love it, mate. Very well said. I think, it's Cripper's prerogative now. He's got the Chaz, and now it's time for him to be that leader. And he showed it at times last year. I think in the games like, the Archie incident comes to mind.
He bumps who he wants.
He does. He does. So I think we're going to see even more, maybe not exactly that, but more of that kind of energy this year from Cripper. Yeah. I think he's fed up with not making finals.
And I hope that is how they're all feeling. And then that's going to be a bit of a difference maker. But Lockie, I'll end on one question here. We've had a good one. It's been nice to be back and talking to, but let's end on a nice positive one again. Yeah. What are you looking forward to the most about this season?
Oh, I'm so glad footy's almost back. For me, it's getting to as many games as possible. I think that's going to be a beautiful thing to not take for granted, considering how long ago it was when we could not go to a game for the entire season. And then I think this kind of goes back to what I was saying about finals. I just want to not take the wins for granted and not take each week for granted. Because I feel like if I think back, I don't even remember how we were feeling when when the Blues were on the top of the world last season. Because I felt like all we were thinking about was we were just looking ahead the whole time. So finals. So are we locked in for finals? Could we miss out? Oh, it looks like we're going to miss out. We missed out. This season, we're obviously still going to talk about it on the pod every week because it's what you have to talk about. Yeah. But I want to not take the individual moments and games for granted. And, we're winning more than 2 games in a season again. And that's something to get excited about. And if we win 2 games this season, then fuck me. The podcast is over.
That's it. We're done. I'm not sure I can do that, but no, that's beautiful. I love that, Lockie. That's really good. I'm going to ask myself the question, considering you didn't ask it to me.
I'm not going to ask. No.
Fair enough. We've gone this long. I'm sure you're sick of hearing me. You're hoping we only win 2 games, so you don't have to deal with me every week.
Mate, I'm going to do the summer sessions next year. I don't know. I didn't know if you saw that email. I've been poached. But no, what are you excited about, mate? What are you excited about this year?
it might be a bit cheesy, and this isn't meant to be, but it goes around the going to the games. And I think I probably always wanted to have and feel like I'm a part of some bigger group going to the footy. Like it's normally, which I've absolutely loved, and I'm not trying to take this for granted. It's normally just been like me and my family going to the games, and I might be able to catch up with you and maybe a couple of other people, but it's always felt quite rigid in a way of, I just want to be able to celebrate and enjoy these moments with so many other people. And probably the best part about this podcast is being able to meet so many different people. And I want to kind of make a bit more of an occasion around the footy, not just have it. I go to the game, I maybe go for a beer afterwards somewhere and go home. I want to be going to somewhere before the game and trying to see as many people as possible, so many friends, and making this, maybe like you're saying, make every game an occasion, make every game a grand final. That's what footy's about, and we've missed it for so long. So, yeah, if you're listening, if you want to catch up with us, seriously, who are we? I don't know why you'd want to in the first place, but if you do, we are open to have a drink, have a bit of a chat. Cannot wait to get stuck into it. We'll be at the preseason game in Melbourne, so definitely we'll try to arrange a bit of a meetup with everyone that we possibly can, if there is anyone that does, because I don't know if you do. But
well, I mean, we put these call to actions out 65 minutes into the podcast, everybody time. If you're still here and listening, let us know, and let Ian buy you a Carlton at Icon in a couple of weeks. And next episode, let's bring this up in the first 5 minutes and watch the inquiries flow in.
Well, you're the one that's been big on this move to try and get this podcast onto TikTok. So, mate, get out there, clip this, push that one for me, and maybe we can find that as a way. When I stuff this podcast run sheet up and I've left something too late, just clip it, and that's the one that goes out there. But I think this has been a good way to end the first episode back. And I might end it with, again, maybe leaving a bit of breadcrumbs for those that are quite passionate with this podcast, the big supporters.
Love it.
Because if you've lasted this long, I don't know why you have, but we love you. And this is our 99th episode, the one that you're currently listening to, which means the next one that we release will be our 100th. And I don't want to go too early. Don't want to hype this one up too much, but we've got a couple of special things planned. I know everyone always says this. Everyone always tries to hype it up.
Big things coming.
But there is something to keep your eyes peeled out for. So when this one drops and you listen to it and you clearly get to the end, get excited for our 100th. But that will wrap this one up. Happy to be back and see you for our 100th episode. See you guys next time.